Hey folks, this is Pecktec and welcome to the Water Change Companion Series 2. And today we're speaking with Father Fish. I'd like to take a quick moment to do a shout out to my Patreon subscribers. Thank you guys. You guys are awesome and I love you. Father Fish's channel to me is relatively new. It's something I became aware of, I guess maybe probably a couple of years ago. And he's been tearing it up. He's got a lot of good advice to give. He's a really interesting guy to know. Lou, I had a great time talking to you, and I look forward to talking to you and working with you some more. I'm hoping he'll give me some good advice. I want to try. I want to try more dirted tanks this year. I think I'm going to do at least 2 of them this year. So I've already got some of his products. So we'll be talking more about all that later. But until then, here's Father Fish.
Pay attention.
Lou, thank you so much for joining me. You don't mind if I call you Lou, do you?
Not at all. Not at all.
All right, Lou. I've spent a couple of days looking at your content and kind of going over and doing my best to sort of investigate and get to know you a little bit better, as much as you can from looking at somebody on a computer screen and stuff like that.
Really.
This is the first time we've really gotten to talk though, one-on-one, and
Yep.
I'm really excited to get to know you even better.
Well, thank you. Likewise, Sean.
So, you've talked a few times about gathering dirt from ponds and existing water systems to add to tanks as substrate.
Right.
What was that to add? Was that to add as a supplement, or is that like the main ingredient? And
That's increased biodiversity. Okay, so the dirt, the whole concept of dirt is to provide a natural foundation for the aquarium. Your lasagna, for example, is really my dirt. There's not a whole lot of difference. I have a formula based on things like peat moss, black cow, potting soil, and then a number of specific supplements like iron oxide, a little bit of osmocote, golly, lime, trying to think of all of them, diatomaceous earth. There are about 9 different things that I include in a supplement package that I also sell online as a way of being able to expand the life expectancy of the substrate.
well, that's really interesting. I was about to ask if you. I've watched your video on all your ingredients. I was just like, oh my gosh! I mean, I did a dirted tank and I was potting soil and sand, and that was my only 2 things.
Well, that's a good start.
Well, I think I put in uh, Mexican potting clay or pottery clay or something
Okay.
like that also. But the man, it was a really fascinating video. He has a video where he just goes through and he's just like put a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And so do you sell the mix, like all those ingredients combined on your website? Is that
I do. I don't sell the dirt, but I
just
sell
all the rest of it?
the supplements. Yeah, it's a little sandwich bag package that has enough in it to do about 400 gallons for $20. So
Oh my gosh.
it's pretty inexpensive, and you add that to your base, which is whatever you've got. Potting soil. I do recommend something humusy. You want to think about loam. Think about earth. Think about what a garden would require and what would create a good garden soil. And that's what I want to use in the aquarium.
So, what are some common mistakes that are made with dirted tanks? Are there some pitfalls?
The worst one, of course, is not capping it adequately. And that's really key for several reasons. One, simply to keep the dirt out of the water column. I mean, that's pretty basic, really.
Yeah.
You can do it without it, and you can use some of the prepared soils that are available. They're not as good as sand because they're not as fine, but they work and they look good, and they work pretty well. You just need to make them a little bit deeper, like 2.5 to 3 inches. The other reason it's important is because it in effect creates an anaerobic layer. And anaerobics are really the key to any kind of balanced environment, whether it's on the earth or in the water. If you don't have anaerobics, plants can't take up nutrition. Anaerobics are key to what's called the chelation process, to nutrients, to uh, raw material like dead leaves and poop and whatnot, breaking down into its constituent components in order for plant roots to be able to take it up. So the sand, by being about 2 inches deep, prevents the water from flowing through into the dirt. So it stops the oxygenation process. So oxygen can't get down into there, into that dirt, and it becomes then uh, uh, anaerobic, and it'll break down waste and become really the machine that drives the whole balanced aquarium.
I made a couple of I made a couple of mistakes. I feel like when I did my attempt at a dirted tank, I had a 55 and I set it up, but I think I did only maybe an inch and a half of sand, and it just wasn't enough sand. Like I should have gone back and got another bag.
Add another, yeah, add some more sand, and that's I have a bill. This is a sand bill. Whenever I whenever I need to tell someone they need to add more sand, they get a bill. They get a sand bill.
Yeah, I think you'd definitely be dinging the bell on mine. Well, it became apparent um, too, and I put too much clay in. Like I know adding some clay helps for a couple of different reasons, but I put too much in, and so what happened was uh, I got a lot of growth initially. Like in the first 6 months or so, it was amazing. I'd never seen plant growth like that before, and it was great. But then I would go to trim, and I'd have to move plants around and stuff. And as soon as I pulled a plant up, man, it just made a
I
mess.
just lost you.
Because there just wasn't really enough sand to keep that.
Huh.
The roots are just pulling up all that dirt along with the sand and stuff. Yeah, I
Son
feel
of a
like if
gun.
the sand were so basically, we got cut off there. But what I was telling Lou is that I had some problems. My substrate wasn't deep enough. I had put red clay in, but then I pulled when I pull my plants out, it would pull the red clay out with it, and it just kind of made a mess, and soon became sort of an algae farm. Now you were telling me clay is not
Well,
organic.
clay is not organic. It's minerals.
Oh,
It's compacted. It's a very rich source of minerals. So it's essentially highly mineralized dirt, but it's not dirt. It's minerals. It's compacted minerals, and they're compacted so tight that like if you've ever dug clay out of a river bank, you'll notice roots don't go through it because it's too dense. Roots
oh,
can't get into it. They'll go around it, and they'll feed on the outside of it essentially, but they can't get into it. So if you use clay, you've got to mix it in with soil, with organic material, and the way to do that is to turn it into soup. Add enough water to the clay to make it soupy, like a stew,
okay.
and then mix dirt in with it. So you're getting all of those minerals mixed in with the soil, and that gives you the richest possible environment.
I've heard too that particularly with red clay and things that have a lot of iron in them, that some bacterias like to feed on uh, that
Well, the
iron and
bacteria
stuff.
breaks it down. That's right. You know, I use iron oxide as a supplement. Iron oxide takes at least a year to break down. It takes a lot of bacterial activity to break that down, to chelate it, so it becomes available to plant roots to be able to take it up. They can't take up nails. They can't take up pure iron. It has to be chelated. It has to be combined. It has to be turned into essentially an organic substance in order for the plants to be able to take it up. And that occurs again in an anaerobic environment.
Yeah, I've been really fascinated. Like I've tried a lot of different techniques. I think over the years I've been doing YouTube stuff for about 12 years, and I've tried so many different things. I got such amazing growth though. Um, in the beginning with my dirted tank, I really want to try it again with a thicker cap, maybe less of that clay in there, or maybe try it a different way, like you suggested with iron oxide or something in that mix that you've got.
Well,
I'm fascinated by your
we'll get you some of the mix.
I'm fascinated by that mix of materials and stuff. I was like, wow, there's so many different interesting elements that you could add in this stuff. I never really thought about like the worm castings and stuff like that. I
Yeah,
just
yeah, and that's organic. So I use both inorganic and organic material in that mix. Not a lot of organic because the potting soil and the mulch. Somebody showed me a bag of leaf mulch they bought, which is absolutely perfect. I mean, that's just ideal. A rotted leaf mulch is just really excellent stuff. But again, you need to get it down in there. The trick is to keep the organics, to keep the mineralization and the organics out of the water column. You want the water column to be a desert, or as close to it as you can get. That's why the sand. So the sand does a number of things. It keeps the dirt from getting all mixed up. It prevents oxygen from permeating, and it also prevents the dirt from getting into the water column. Now it comes up into that sand slowly. In 6 months, it'll be halfway up, so you'll be able to see it on the side of the tank that it's intruding into the sand layer, and that's the point where you can begin to grow some of the low growing short rooted plants. It's one of the big drawbacks with this system is you can't do Cuba, for example, right away because it can't get its roots down to the nutrients. They're 2 inches below. The other thing is, I recommend when you plant that you plant only 1 inch deep, and that's because when you first set this thing up, it's a barn burner. It's so active and so intense that it'll actually burn the roots of the plants and turn them black.
oh really?
So you only want to get those roots halfway down into the sand and let them do the job of finding nutrients. Roots are really good at that, and they're delicate about it. They'll get to where they need to be without hurting themselves. So they'll go down a quarter inch, another quarter inch, till they begin to find nutrition, and then they'll thrive in that location, and then go deeper as they need to. But they're not going to go deliberately into the volcano, and get burned up. That harshness calms down after a month or two. That's again that what I call the chelation process, where it all sort of begins to gentle itself. They interact all the elements and biologicals are interacting with each other, and they kind of chill out and they stabilize, and it becomes then a very strong, healthy environment.
So the initial reactions are fairly intense, but then it calms down as time goes on.
Yeah, but if you're careful, it's not going to affect anything. Um, if you don't put those roots down in deep, they're not going to be affected by that activity. It'll bubble up. You'll see lots of gas coming up. People freak out about that.
I was going to ask you about the bubbles. What's happening with those bubbles when they start coming up?
Nitrogen. It's nitrogen. It's the most common gas on Earth. It's nothing. There are all kind of fear tactics about, oh, it's producing sulfuric acid that burns every nonsense. It doesn't do such a thing. If it did, every fish and every body of water in the world would be dead, because every fish and every body of water in the world is living in water that has dirt under it.
Well, I was wondering too, is like I'd heard stories about aerobic pockets and them causing problems and stuff, like becoming poisonous and then sending gas up. I mean, that's just things I've heard over the.
I know people say that because they don't know anything about it. So they say it. Yeah, anaerobics. Anaerobics are your friend. Without anaerobics, nothing decays, nothing breaks down. You have to have anaerobics in order to be able to create nutrients for plants. In point of fact, the little cilia on the roots of plants actually create an anaerobic environment that all by itself, the plant is creating anaerobic and breaking down waste in order to be able to absorb it. So you put them in an anaerobic environment and they do that much better. Now, what's anaerobic? Anything under 2 inches deep in the ground is anaerobic.
It's a lack of oxygen, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely. A lack
Uh,
of free oxygen. And that's important because there's water, and water is H2O. That's
right.
hydrogen and oxygen. So there is oxygen. So it's not, strictly speaking, absolutely anaerobic. And this is part of the confusion with the language. Geologists use the word anaerobic to describe an environment like deep space where there is zero oxygen. Biologists use the word anaerobic to describe an environment where there is no free oxygen. There's all kinds of oxygen. There's carbon dioxide. There's water, both of which contain molecules of oxygen.
Have you always kept tanks this way? Was there a point? I know that you've said that you've kept tanks for. Uh, you said your first fish tank was a 20 long in 1954. Uh,
Actually, it was earlier than that. That
Even
was
earlier than that. So
Yeah, it
when
was
did you
more
come
like
to plants and start figuring this stuff out?
probably 25 years ago. Um, Around the early, I began figuring it out when I started keeping saltwater fish and was working with Garf and some of the local deep substrate coral breeders here in the Florida area. They were doing deep substrate. And the reason they were doing it was to create an anaerobic layer to break down waste. So I took that experience over to saltwater, and then I began reading some of the research that was being done on dirted tanks, put two and two together, and figured out the problem with the dirted tank is that it was not capped. So I capped it, and it solved all the problems. And that
That,
was about That was about 20 to 25 years ago. Just a few years before I opened my first shop.
And it was pretty common practice to put soil substrate in aquariums a long time ago, right? Is that true?
Well, yeah, but there was not a lot of understanding about how to do it or why it worked. Generally, what people would do is go out in the backyard and get some soil with sand in it and bring it in and put it in the tank and then very carefully fill it with water and put plants and fish in it. And eventually, it would calm down and it would be very nice. Um, but there was no real understanding of the importance of trying to keep all of that biological activity out of the water column. It was
Right.
in the water column, it was part of the water columm. And so there was still a problem with algae, still a problem with too much CO2 just getting into the total environment, too much algae, da 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 da. So by capping it, which is a technique I brought over from saltwater,
Mhm.
by capping it, it became possible then to control that environment, to keep it out of the water column, and to allow that water column to be pristine.
That's really fascinating. I remember my daughter and I did a little saltwater tank project, and I was fascinated by one comment that I got, and the person said that the old timers know that the filtration is all in the substrate.
Oh,
Like
absolutely,
they said, it's
absolutely,
all the rest of it's like a mechanical
yeah,
filter, and
yeah.
I guess the biological material inside of those filters probably does something, but
Not
the
nearly as
important
much.
stuff is in
Yeah,
the substrate.
yeah. The substrate's the key to the system. It's the foundation. It's the foundation of the house. It's the foundation of the tank. It's the foundation of every body of water on Earth. So by ignoring that and try to create an aquarium without a foundation, you're putting yourself to work. You're having to do all of the work that nature would do naturally if you had the tank set up naturally. So this is a it's a labor free environment. It's utterly labor free. It doesn't grow algae. You almost never get algae. This tank has been set up for about 10 years. I had it at the shop, brought it over, just didn't even add new sand to it. Brought it over, added water to it. It looked pretty rough for a while. Still looks kind of rough. It's Spartan. I don't have nearly enough plants in it, but I'm gradually building it up, and it's gradually. Can you see it?
Yeah,
Gradually beginning to come back. I've got um, buffaloes and uh, the blue ram in here, not the German blue, the neon blue. I think that's all that's in here. But it has reestablished itself in the months or so it's been set up here. Oh, I got a couple of Lulu feet. I went um, to the club meeting in Pasco County in Florida Saturday, and got some Lalupi in the auction. So I've got them in here, and the breeder is sending me some more, so I'm going to have a colony of them in there.
we had our first meetup in a long time here too this past weekend, and I got
Did you?
some peacock gudgeons and stuff. Do they do? Are there clubs down there where you are? They get together and meet.
Yeah, we have a club here in Venice that hasn't met for 15 months. We have our first meeting coming up in 2 weeks. So we're excited about that.
I
Tampa
bet.
has a really good club. They've been meeting now for about 4 months. Um, Miami Dade has a club. There are 5 or 6. Sarasota has a club. There are 4 or 5 clubs within an hour and a half drive, and then you get beyond that, and there are a lot of clubs in Florida actually.
Are
Orlando,
the
I think, does not have one.
really?
Isn't that funny? They had a
Yeah.
saltwater club for a while.
Well,
I
that
don't
whole
think they
town's sort of
do now.
oriented towards theme parks, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of saltwater stuff. Right.
Is it all saltwater stuff, or are there some freshwater people in there too?
There are freshwater people. I met a couple at the Pasco County Club. They came over for that. That was like a 2 hour drive for them to get from Orlando to there. In fact, one of them's a YouTuber, and he does wild fish.
Hmm.
He's a native fish guy. First time I met him, really cool guy. We're going to get together and do some collecting over in Arcadia. I found a great source for Ellisoma evergladi, the pygmy sunfish, which I've been selling online. I've, I'm able to collect enough to be able to sell them, so I'm really excited about that.
Those are neat fish. They like a
Pretty
lot
hard
of
to make fish. They
are they
look at
hard to keep.
no, they're real easy.
Oh,
They'll live in hard to hard to soft water. Temperature's not an issue. Hot to cold. They're super simple fish to keep. The only thing is they require live food. So you've got to have an established tank. Now, here's here let's go back to this. This tank has an enormous amount of organic life right in the top of the sand bed. It's loaded with all kinds of protozoan as well as algae. So it is a seed bed for baby fish. It's a food source for baby fish and provides the biological foundation, the living life foundation for the whole system. Because you've got little animals down in there breaking down that waste as it comes in. So it precipitates down further and further into the sand until it hits that dirt layer. So it's a true natural environment. And then you started off with a question about going out and getting wild mud.
yeah.
The whole purpose of that is to increase the biodiversity in this system because the more biodiverse it is, the more stable and balanced it becomes. If you've only got two or three kinds of bacteria, they're going to be at war with each other. But if you got 20 or 30 or 40 kinds of bacteria, they're going to jostle for space and be more at peace. They'll be more stable.
Like a tank with a whole bunch of aggressive fish in it.
Well, yeah, I've got a good case in point. Let's see if we can look at this. I did a video that's coming out tonight. I have a betta colony. Can you see?
Yeah.
Can you see this?
Uh huh.
I have three males and three females in here, and they are not tearing each other up. There's
It's
no,
not very long either. Usually, I've heard 3 feet minimum with males in there.
this is a 40-gallon breeder. So,
Okay.
so it's 3 feet. But they they come together. The males will come together. They'll flare, but they're not fighting. They're not biting each other. There are females in there, and the females are all over the males. So when the males start flaring, the females are right in the middle of it, and they draw the attention of the males away from each other, back to them. It's amazing. It's just fascinating. So I'm going to get in a lot of trouble. At least that's my plan. My plan is to get in a lot of trouble with it.
So that's an actual goal.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
There's been a lot of there's a it's I've noticed since I started making videos and receiving comments, and I'm sure you've noticed this too. There's a lot of people that are very stuck in a very black and white scenarios for how things can
Oh
be.
yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
the truth is there's a million ways to do everything. Um, I've got a lot of successful planted tanks without using dirt. You've got a lot of successful planted tanks using dirt. There's and one way might be more optimal than another way, but but neither is wrong completely.
That's
Uh,
absolutely right. And that I think that's one of the beauties of the hobby. It's a hermit's hobby. This is something we do all by ourselves with
so
nobody
true.
else around, and we get to play God. We get to do whatever we want to do in that little aquarium to try to figure out how to keep these guys alive and thriving.
That's
And you're
so
right.
true.
There's really no right way. There's what you develop and what you figure out. I
So
think
in a way, it's sort of unnatural to take all these things that you've done and then show them to thousands of people.
I have. Well, I tell you, here's the key though. The reason I do it is because so many people fail. The failure rate in this hobby is astounding. I estimate it's well over 90% failure rate.
Oh
And
wow!
the reason is they go into a store, typically a big box store. They walk out with a bag of fish, a tank, and a bag of gravel, a filter, a pump, and a light. And they put it all together. And 2 days later, they're back in the store because everything died. So they get some more. They bring them in, bring them home, put them in the tank. 2 days later, they're back in the store because everything died. The third time this happens, they quit, or they'll go looking for help if they
Yeah.
really are motivated, and maybe they'll get help and maybe they won't. I have countless people, and I found it in the shop. I'm finding it here on YouTube. Countless people that say, my God, I'm so thankful I found you because I tried this system. It seems stupid to put dirt in your tank, but I did it and it works, and my tank is beautiful, and I'm so happy. So
Where
that's why I do it.
I meet so many people that don't realize that you can put plants in. They assume that every plant they see in an aquarium is a fake plant. And it's so funny when they come to like I'll see somebody walk up to one of my aquariums that's maybe even not doing too well. They'll have some dead leaves and some holes in it and yellow, and are those real plants? I'm like, you think people would make
Yeah,
plants that look like that, covered with algae and
right.
but
Yeah, and the
I
thing is, if you don't have plants, you don't have anything approximating a balanced tank, or for that matter, a healthy tank. So you're struggling then with maintaining a very synthetic, very artificial environment for fish that don't like being in an artificial environment. And if you work at it really hard and you pay attention really well and you do all of the ABCD stuff, you can keep them alive for a while. But the second you miss a beat, the fish get sick. And by the second beat, they're dead.
right.
People fail because they don't have a frame of reference for what that aquarium really ought to be.
It's a really deep subject too. I think that's why people flock to YouTube for more information, is because there's really a lot to know, uh, and it goes deep. I think once you get the basics, you kind of get this thing makes more sense once
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
about the nitrogen cycle and stuff. All these things that we're talking about start to make sense, but it's a big step initially,
Yeah,
probably a bigger step than most people think about when they're at PetSmart looking
yeah,
at that 10
exactly.
gallon tank.
And in the beginning, they need a way to set it up that's going to work, that's going to be successful, that's not going to be crazy labor intensive, that they're not going to be able to fail by doing, some little thing. That's just going to be it's going to be stable, it's going to be healthy, it's going to work, and that's really what this is doing. It's giving a brand new person a chance at a good solid start.
So we were talking about plants and how important they are, but of course, there are some fish that just don't accommodate plants, like Oscars that like or earth mover types that like to dig everything up. Do you still put a deep sand bed, maybe without the dirt, in places like that?
Yeah, exactly. Right. I don't try to put dirt if they're major earth movers like the Central American cichlids, or for that matter, Mbunas, the Malawi cichlids. They're great earth movers too. I don't struggle with it because I know they're going to whip it up. They're going to earth move it. They're going to be a steam shovel moving the whole substrate to one end of the tank. So I just give them a deep sand bed, but I make it really deep, like 6 inches deep.
So there's no way they actually could get to the bottom, or
Well, they
very
may,
little.
yeah, but they'll weary of it after a time.
uh, do you notice, like, when I set up a lot of times when I set up a tank with the soil, like aqua soil and those types of products, they'll release ammonia for about a week or two. Is there anything similar that happens to that with the dirted tanks?
Not really. We get zero ammonia, zero nitrates from day one all the way through. Some people have an ammonia problem. I don't think it's caused by the dirt. I think it's caused by overfeeding.
Okay.
Overfeeding is the single greatest crime that's committed in the fish hobby. There is no there is no greater violence you can do to a fish than overfeed it because you foul the tank.
uh, what are some ways to what are some ways to learn the appropriate amount of food to give to a fish tank?
Well, when I run across a situation where someone is obviously overfeeding, I say, okay, here's the rule: no food for 30 days. And they'll go, yeah, I saw your eyes go up. Right? 30 days, 1 month. You've got plants in there. You've got your deep sand bed. You've got an established natural environment. No food for 30 days. I challenged one of my YouTubers who finally got his tank stabilized. He had dirt, but he didn't know to cap it. So when he got it capped, suddenly the whole thing came alive and just straightened out. The next thing was he was overfeeding. So I said, okay, his name is Lee. Okay, Lee, in London, in England, sweet man. I said, all right, no food. Well, for how long, Sir Father Fish, he calls me. For how long, Sir Father Fish? I said, 1 month. Well, he did not feed his fish for 6 months. 6 months, no food. He actually set up what he referred to as a poop patrol to determine that the fish were pooping. And he noted the length of the poop trails and discovered that all of the fish were obviously eating. He had little fish, mostly live bears, a few
Right.
tetras, in about a 40-gallon tank, very heavily planted with a deep substrate that created so much food all by itself. See, here's the thing about a balanced tank: a balanced aquarium feeds all of its members. Everything in there gets fed by the tank, by the system. That's what cycling means. It's going through all of the living organisms in a big circle. So even the little fish, big fish are different. Little fish, if you have little fish in your tank, they're going to find food in that tank. And it'll be adequate to sustain them indefinitely. So
Wow.
no food for 30 days. And they gulp and then they try it and they're amazed because the fish don't get sick and they're not starving. In fact, they're thriving and they're not coming up to the front of the glass every time they walk into the room. They're not begging. they begin to see more natural behavior, begin to see the fish acting in a more pleasurable way.
So you were talking about new aquarists, and you said you've developed a system to help new aquarists after seeing so many new keepers coming in and giving up. What do you tell them to get them on the right path, like right from the beginning?
Well, I tell them take a deep breath, put 1 inch of mud in the bottom of their tank, put 2 inches of sand on top of that, and then put a towel or a plate in there. Fill it up with water. If you need to use a dechlorinator, do it. Put some plants in gently, just halfway down into the sand. Turn the light on, put a little sponge filter in there, and then tomorrow you can put a few fish in.
Well, next day.
Next day, right. 3 or 4, 5, 6 little fish. A week later, you can put a few more in.
Wow.
As long
When
as
I do
everything is
mine,
stable. Pardon?
it seems like I'll wait. I started waiting weeks just because if I put fish in too soon, I just get overrun with algae. But
Well,
that's my
that's
flawed
because you got
system,
right. It's because you got too much nutrition in the water column. And again, that's the function of the sand
right?
to,
To
to
cap that
allow
up.
that to precipitate out of the water column into the substrate.
And you said it can take like a year or so before it actually the Tritus really makes its way all the way
Yeah, the
through.
cycle is very slow. One of the complaints that I get routinely from people who understand such things is, well, it takes forever for that to happen. And my answer is, well, if you got the time, honey, I got the tank. If it takes 5 years, it takes 5 years, but it doesn't. It takes 3 to 6 months for it to really work its way down in there and begin percolating, begin breaking down and feeding the plants.
Do you think a lot of people come to find this method because they're avoiding water changes, or they like a system where they can avoid water changes a little bit
Well,
more?
yeah, I do actually. I mean, that's probably the most laborious thing. I have a lot of people who say that their best friend is their python, you know, so they're not lugging buckets. Yeah, I don't do water changes very rarely.
Yeah,
I
I've
mean,
seen some tours and stuff that you've done, and you really don't do them very often. Maybe once every 6 months or once a year,
yeah.
or
Well, it
depending
was
on the
kind of
pH. You said, I think.
yeah, it was kind of cheating in the shop because everything was on a central system there. So it was in effect a very large body of water that was getting fresh water coming in routinely because I had top off valves.
Right.
So whenever there was evaporation, there was new water coming in to replace that. And of course, I had water going out in fish bags and splashing and flooding and this and that. So there were water changes going on. We just didn't call them that.
I guess that's right. I mean, every little bag of fish is some of your water leaving the tank.
Yeah, right. And that was automatically topped off.
And
I had automatic top off systems. So
did you engineer all your filtration and stuff?
I did, but I had a lot of help. We had a system that was 50 to 60 years in the making. The roots of it went all the way back into the early 50s and involved an engineer from the 50s who developed some early on systems. And we just adopted and adopted and adopted. We finally came up with something that was just enormously effective. And I thought, man, this is about as new and unique as you can get. And then I had an engineer come in and he said, wow, that looks just like the systems that they used on boilers in the 1800s.
Wow.
So what did that do after all?
Yeah, but who's around from the 1800s to notice that?
Yeah, well, right.
Oh, let's see.
I want to ask you a couple of questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Uh, you mentioned the other day that over the last year, your channel has almost tripled. You're at nearly 50,000 subscribers
Yeah,
right
just
now.
about.
That means a year ago you were at 15 to 20.
Well, I don't know. I might have. I don't remember saying that. I'm not saying I didn't, but yeah, it's actually been a pretty slow roll compared to other people that have been around 12 years or so.
Okay. I
But
was startled when I heard that because that meant that you picked up about 30,000 subs in 1 year. And
that would be terrific. It's
yeah,
probably
I'd
closer
like
to
to
like
know
five
how
or
you did that.
six.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Oh,
it's
well,
probably
almost
closer to
half
five or
that.
six.
That's about my rate. That's I've been around a year and a half. Is that right? 19 to yeah, a year and a half. And I'm at 83 today. So I figure I'll be at 10 by the end of the summer. Unless I
Yeah,
get a spurt. I looked for spurts. I've had 3 spurts where for a period of 2 weeks I went zoom. And then for the next 2 weeks I went zoom. It went straight up and then straight down. 2 weeks up, 2 weeks down. But each time it came down, it was a little better, a
yeah.
little higher than it was before. So it's been interesting watching it. But I don't really feel like I've got any control over it at all.
It is. It's sort of it's a really mysterious thing. Like, and you could try to play to the algorithm and stuff like that, but it's anybody's guess. I mean, people are in there throwing switches all week long,
Yeah,
making things
exactly.
worth more than other things. And there's all anytime you use something new that YouTube has put out, I think that's what a lot of people do is they'll find like the shorts are the big thing now where you film it, but I don't like to film vertically. I hate
Yeah,
vertical video.
I
It
tried
really
to do
bugs me.
one, and I just kept screwing it up. I finally gave up.
But the uh, growing a YouTube channel, the first 1,000 is the hardest, and then it gets a little bit easier and a little bit easier. Um, you do some stuff that I can't. I actually can't do. Like I I've tried to do live streams many times, but I'm just no good at it. I get really distracted with the comments, and I have trouble reading them too. Like
Yeah,
depending on what platform. If I've got a laptop with a big monitor, I might be able to kind of read them. But then I feel like when I'm reading the comments, I'm being boring, or I can't. I don't like if I was to sit and like read you something off here. It sounds terrible. Like I'm not a good like. I I was never any good at story time. That was my wife's job. Like literally,
yeah,
I sat and tried to
yeah,
read books to
yeah.
my
You're
daughter,
right.
and she was like, "Can you get mommy?"
That's funny. It's the thing people enjoy the most is the stories. When I get into some kind of a riff about something in my childhood or something in my past, they love it.
Oh,
I don't do nearly enough of it, but it has to come to me. If it doesn't come to me, it ain't there. I can't sit around and think now, what story should I tell? Never happens that way. I could think all day and nothing would happen. It's spontaneous. And I guess
oh,
I've been doing live streams every day for 14 months. And for a long time, I did them 7 days a week. I just started doing them 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. And I've got people who really want me to do weekends where I bring people up and show off their fish rooms. I've done some of that and they love it. So
I
I'm
think I
much
caught. Yeah, I
more into
caught one of those. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, they are neat. You see some really cool stuff too. It's amazing what people do. And one guy, he's got upside down tanks in his house in big tubs. And it's absolutely amazing.
I've never. Well, I guess I've seen that a little bit indoors, mostly when people make the bridges. They go
Yeah,
between the
right.
tank. It kind of works the same way, right? Where they
Yeah,
vacuum out
exactly.
the air.
He's
But
got a 100-gallon tank sitting in a tub, and that sucker is sitting 3 feet up above the tub, upside down. It is fascinating, just amazing.
I'm trying to imagine, like, so if the water ever got down below, would it just like flood everything out?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I don't know how full it is, but that could be a problem. I
If you
had,
ever,
I did
what's your,
one once. I
uh,
had a boat sitting outside my shop, and I had an inverted octagon, about 100-gallon octagon, sitting on top of this boat, full of water, with goldfish going in and out of it. And I had a guy come in who was a veterinarian. A veterinarian came in and he said, "You can't do that." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Those fish won't get any oxygen. They're going to suffocate." And I just, a doctor, a doctor.
it's like it's not all that aquarium.
Yeah,
They
right.
can swim out of it if they want.
Funny stuff. Funny stuff.
What's your biggest fish disaster? Like if you had sort of a seam break or something, or a major flood or anything like that.
I don't know. I try to forget the disasters. I try not to remember. I had one here. A friend of mine brought over this 55 right here that I have Ambunas in right now. They're all peacocks. Somebody gave me all these peacocks. I don't even like them particularly, and I've got to sell them, but there they are. The tank was not getting clean, so he brought over a canister as a gift. Hooked it up, turned it on, worked great, cleared it up real quick. The next morning, the floor is flooded. And I looked, and he had taped the hose onto a piece of rigid, and the tape failed, and the hose just fell down. So it siphoned out about 8 inches of water out of the tank. Fortunately, my roommate didn't learn about it, and I'm on a concrete patio that slopes this way away from the house. So none of the water went in the house. So I get a lot of things like that happen all the time. All the time.
A canister filter got me on probably my worst one too. I had a fitting. It wasn't taped, thankfully, like that. But I had a kind of an older canister that I'd gotten off Craigslist or something, and I didn't I didn't change the hoses out or anything like that. And I think um, the where the hose, you know, you can like screw the hose into the little attachment before you put it into the canister.
Yeah.
I don't think that was attached very well, and I was doing a water change. I did like, I think I pulled maybe 20% of this 55 out, and I went into the canister to do something, and I put it back together, and then I went on to the rest of my tanks. I think at the time I had like 20 of them, so it took a while to kind of go all the way back. And I came back down. I looked at my 55, and I was like, "Wow, I really went to town pulling water out of this one. It's like it looks like I pulled like 75% of the water out. I mean, it was really
Yeah.
low, and I was like, and then my brain was like, no, there's no way you pulled that much water out of it. And I went and I had carpet at the time, and I walked over there, and it's just like squish, squish, squish.
Yuck. Oh,
It
I
took a
had one. Oh, here's the ultimate catastrophe. I I had a dentist friend who I traded, he was a fish guy, traded aquariums for dental work. He had a big snapping turtle that he had raised from a baby, and he loved this snapping turtle. He had it in about a 75, 90 something. He wanted a really big tank. Well, at the time, another friend of mine was working for a local glass company, and they said, "Oh, I'll build it, I'll build it." So I figured, what have I got to lose? I'm going to tell you. So he built the aquarium at 300 gallons. Monster, 6 foot by 2 foot by, I don't know, 2.5 foot, 1836. Yeah, that's about right. 6 by 2 by 2 is about 300 gallons. Big bloody tank. Put it in, set it up, filled it up, put sand. We had 6 inches of sand. Filled this thing up with water, walking out the door, and boom, the bottom went out of it. Flooded the entire dental area. They had to shut down their operation for the day. We
That's a
got
lot of water.
Oh man, we got a service in. They came in, cost $3,000 to clean it all up. My insurance paid for it. Isn't
Wow.
that amazing? I was astounded. They paid every penny of it.
That's really
So I think,
surprising.
yeah. So then the guy decided. I don't know how we worked it out. Um, a commercial made tank. Brought it in. He paid for that one. I think he had not paid for the other one when it was on barter. That's what it was. It was all on trade. Um, and the new tank was too. So we got it in, set it up. It was beautiful. Same size tank. It held up for about 2 years and developed a leak. Contacted the manufacturer. They paid it off. They sent him a check for the $2,000 worth of dental work that he did for me as the cost of the tank. So he
That's
got,
awesome.
and then we fixed the tank. So we pocketed the money, fixed the tank. I saw it 2 weeks ago. It's still going strong. This was 5 years ago. Yeah, it was amazing. So it turned around, but that was pretty tragic. When that thing blew, the guy lost his job with a glass company.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it
Over
was
that tank?
over that tank, yeah. Um, because he did it on the side. Now they knew about it, but he didn't know what he was doing, and he could have had the bottom glass tempered, but he didn't do it. If it had been tempered, that probably would not have happened. We'd have probably gotten away with it.
Is the tempered glass stronger? I know. I wasn't sure if it was the way it breaks that's different,
It's more
or
it's more flexible. It
okay,
makes it more flexible, so it can give without cracking. It doesn't crack, I guess is the key. It'll it will fracture, but it doesn't create. You don't get pressure cracks
right.
with it.
I've noticed most bottoms of tanks are tempered glass, and I always kind of wondered
Any
why that
big
was.
tank, yeah, any big tank. It's just a safety precaution.
So I noticed in a walkthrough of your store that you have some birds in there too.
I did.
You
You
did?
know, I shut the store down.
Oh yeah.
You did, yeah. I shut it down in February, so I'm not doing it anymore. And I sold it out to the walls. Just sold everything in it. I had a lot of finches. I would occasionally get big birds in. My favorite were the cockatoos. Um, I had dozens of cockatoos over the years I was there, and I loved every one of them and wish I would have kept them because they're wonderful birds. A lot of cockatiels, Amazon parrots, a lot of Amazons, Quakers, noisy Quakers, a lot of birds, a lot of different kinds of birds. My favorite were probably the finches, all of the
Yeah.
different finches.
That's really interesting. I was wondering if you had uh, if had a love for all animals. Are there any particular other things that you like to have kept as pets and stuff?
You know what's weird is I've had very few dogs in my life.
Huh.
I love dogs. I love dogs. But I've had very few, only maybe two or three. I've just never been, like at the shop, I couldn't have a dog there. There was no place to take it out to walk it. I would have had walk. I would have had to walk half a mile to get it to a patch of grass, so I couldn't have one there. I've had a lot of cats, and cats are okay, but they kind of are their own thing. I have a, I have a painting of, this is Tom. Ooh, dropped my camera on the floor. I had Tom for 14, almost 15 years.
Yeah.
I had his mother. Um, she bore two kittens. Tom was one. He was he was a big cat, really nice cat. He was a good friend. He died last fall.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he just got to the point where he couldn't walk anymore. So it was kind of hopeless. He had arthritis.
Yeah, we have a cat that I got for Kerrigan on her 16th birthday, my daughter, and then she went away to college, and now he sits on my lap all the time.
Right. I had a cat like that. I had a Siamese that my father adopted when I went away to college. And he loved that cat. He really did. He never had a pet when he was a kid. He grew up in the inner city, and they didn't do pets in the inner city. At
Yeah, I
least
guess
not
not.
back then. Yeah, but he enjoyed the cat.
Yeah.
How you doing on your list there?
I think we've wandered in and out of just about every question that I had here. I was trying to think of something else. I think a lot of people have that dream of keeping a fish store and stuff like that, and you had one for a long time. Is there a is there any advice you have to somebody that might be looking to try to start a business like that themselves?
Well, yeah, just try to keep the overhead down. That's the killer. If you can get an inexpensive place to rent and do as much as you can without borrowing anything, just try to do it out of pocket. Try to do a bootstrap operation. If you can do that, it's going to be in the long run a lot more fun and a lot less stressful. I did that, and it was not stressful. I didn't make any money in it, when I went back and looked at it, I realized the reason I didn't make any money was because every time I got a dollar, I put it back into it. I mean, I'd be in pretty good shape today if I hadn't done that. I was 18 years. I could have easily $250,000, easily, but I didn't. So and I wound up with whatever I got for selling everything off, which wasn't much. But boy, I got great memories.
Yeah,
Great memories. And it led me here. It led me into this YouTube thing, which I'm thoroughly enjoying.
I I think you do for an older guy. I think you do, and I'm almost 50, so I mean, uh, but you do fantastic with the technology. Like you're doing live streams. You got a Discord. I don't even know what Discord is. and I
Well,
work in IT.
yeah,
I mean,
I had a kid working for me who said you need to do Discord. Well, I didn't know what it was, so he set it up, and it's intuitive. It's easy for people to get into and figure it out. T-Bone, I don't know if you know T-Bone. T-Bone went in today. He's a guy down in Australia who's an old country guy.
uh-huh.
He went in and he fell in love with it. He's on there showing pictures of his new fish and chatting up the girls and having a great time.
I'm gonna go on your Discord probably tonight then
It's
and
been a
mess
lot of
around.
fun. It really, I recommend it. And we've got Stephen, the biologist, is in there almost every day. We even set up a separate channel for him for people who are having problems to leave a picture and their note on that channel. So when he comes in, he can go there and be able to survey all of the fish problems. And that's working out really well. He's enjoying that, and everybody else is too. It's amazing. It's a 24/7 chat.
Okay, so that's kind of it's just like a hangout place to go
Yeah,
and talk
exactly.
about stuff.
Exactly. And I don't like to do my live streams that way. I did that for a little while, and it grated on me because I found it was like it was being taken away from me. I lost control of it. So when I finally got back to, I had one woman on, I had Joey on with me for a couple of months, and that was good, but it was kind of the same thing. And there were enough technical problems that with the lag and talking over and just the insurmountable problems that when I finally was back on my own, I was a little disoriented, but I'm finding that it's better, that I'm doing better by myself than having anybody on helping me.
Right.
Not that they don't help because they do, but it takes away from what what I'm able to do by myself. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes it's not so good. But at least it's me.
Right. Well, I think you're very genuine. I like to listen to
Thank
your work. I'll sit at work in my cubicle. Uh, I go into work a couple of times a week now, and I'll sit there and I'll put my little phone off on the side in the corner where no one can see, and put my headphones in, and I'll like to sit and listen to your show
you. Oh, thank you.
uh, while I'm working on stuff, and I think it's great. I'm
You were on today. That
Yeah,
you,
I was sneaking
yeah,
onto. That's why I couldn't come on and join it because I was in a cubicle with people all
it
around
was
me.
fun. So happy to see you. It was a remarkable stream today. I had a guy at the end of it saying there were sections of this that were like a guided meditation, which I thought was fascinating.
I thought it was funny too. You had bird sounds on and ocean sounds or something.
Yeah, and music too. I had some soft jazz. Yeah, I had two different bird sound videos on, and then a jazz on top of it. I even had a second music jazz on top of that one, but I thought that was too much.
What are you streaming with? Are you using StreamYard or something like
Yeah,
that?
I am. Yeah, and the biggest problem is in the beginning when I've got YouTube up and StreamYard up, and then I'm playing background music from YouTube, and it's on a different channel. So I wind up with the original channel opening and playing, and I get a feedback. And
Yeah,
I've yet to figure out how to prevent that and be able to get back on after it's all over. So it's just a matter of learning a simple way to do it to make it smooth. And
I
so
get
far, it's still not smooth.
I get so aggravated in live streams. Like I've had the echo issues and other weird
Oh,
issues and stuff.
I know, I know.
It
Yeah,
is it is it's tough. And then you're sitting there just twisting in the wind in front of like at least a dozen people, maybe more.
Really.
I do such rare live streams. I think I get quite a few people that'll run in if they see me doing something live.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like for it to work.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, I do too. I get frustrated when it does that, and then I feel stupid that I can't make this thing work right.
Yeah. Well,
But
I
very forgiving.
yeah, that's
They
true. I
really
mean, I think
yeah,
people know you're just a regular person and stuff, and you're just doing the best you can.
yeah.
But
That's a professional enterprise. Really.
there's a certain comfort that I get from sitting alone in my room talking to a camera and just trying to pretend like that's a person,
I
and
know.
then being able to just clip all the cringy stuff that I do out.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, like people ask me why I've got so many clips and stuff. It's because I can't keep a train of thought for more than a couple of minutes. I'm just
Well, I
like,
don't even try. That's why. That's why I let the chat run it, so I don't have to. Because I get off on. I go down rabbit trails all the time, and then forgot where I came from.
Lou, it's been really great talking to you. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I enjoy being here, Sean. You're a
Uh,
great guy. I was looking forward to this because I wanted to get to know you better. I've just had such a nice feeling for you and about you watching your videos. I love the lasagna video. I think that was my favorite. But you've done some pretty good interviews lately that have been top drawer. They've been really good quality interviews with some fairly tough people.
yeah, I do my best. I do my best to kind of know who I'm talking to and ask them good questions. There's questions that I have about them and about the stuff that they do, and questions also that I think other people would want to know. And
No,
uh,
it's good. It's really good.
it's tough.
You're
It's tough
obviously
sometimes.
doing something right because you got a lot of people who appreciate you and are supporting you.
I'm very grateful and I feel blessed to have
You bet.
the
You
fans
bet.
that I do.
You
I've got a
bet.
really great group of people that have been very supportive over the years, and
Yeah, you do. You
I
do.
appreciate all of
That's
them too.
that's building. It's coming along for me. I do have a group of people who just really love the channel.
You've got some super fans because
I
when I
do.
started calling out, yeah, when I started calling out saying, "Hey, I'd like to talk to some other people," you came up many, many times, many times. I have a feeling a lot of people will be really happy and excited to see you on here,
Oh, that's nice to hear.
and plus I'm a fan, so I wanted to talk to you too, and I really like what you do,
I heard
and
what you said that that I was at the top of your list for somebody who wanted to talk to. I was
you were.
very gratified to hear that. That
Well,
just
I've
that
been
was
listening in part because I want to go. I think my 210 when I redo it, I'm probably going to do it with dirt, and I might even go to my local waterways and get some sludge out of the bottles.
yeah. Well, call me. Keep in touch with me
I
because
will.
you can screw it up. The biggest problem is putting too much dirt in. You can't
Right.
have too much because it'll overwhelm the system.
Oh, I did have another question. So when I put dirt in before, um, I I ran it through a sieve and I took out all the big chunks of wood from the potting soil. Is that something that's best to leave in?
I would. I don't think it matters one way or the other. It's organics. It's going to break down, and they're not putting hardwood in that. It's softwood anyway. So yeah, it would be beneficial.
I was worried that it would float out, like it would try to
Well, yeah,
float up through the sand.
that's the capping issue. You
Right.
got to cap it adequately so you don't get any kind of intrusion into the water column. That's really critical.
Huh. Okay. Well, I will keep in touch. I'm gonna order some of that. I'm gonna order some of that mix.
Okay.
Maybe I'll do a smaller tank first and kind of play with it.
Good
I just got
idea.
a brand new one. I might
Yeah.
try it out on.
Nice.
But I will. I'll be in touch with you real soon, and I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you,
I'm gonna
Sean.
go ahead and say goodbye.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Means a lot.
You're welcome. I'll we'll do more stuff together. If you ever want to do something over on your channel, I'm
Love
happy to
to.
do something over there too.
That would be fun. Thanks. Bless you. Take care.
Thank you folks for watching. I'll be back next week with another video. Next week's video is Alexander Williamson from The Secret History of Living Inside Your Aquarium. See you then.